Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it comes from a translation of a message that I received. The translation of that message reads like this: Hello, my brother. How are you? Can you please post my story as hidden identity? I am a man who comes from Zim. Currently, I am staying in a foreign country. Please hide the name of the country where I am currently residing and working for security purposes. My brother, I want to tell you a story about my father, and this thing, it is even affecting me up until today. Growing up, my father, I can say that he was a man who loved money. If he had money in his pocket, my father would try by all means so that he can double that money that would have entered into his pockets. My father, he used to go around and he would be doing some piece jobs. He worked primarily as a gardener. Then on his spare time, that was when he used to go around cutting people's grass and doing some piece jobs. But what these people didn't know is that my father, he was connected to the criminal organization. What he will do is that as he will be busy working in the neighborhood, because he used to work a lot in the rich neighborhoods of our country, so he will be gathering information, especially if it was during the festive season. That is when most of the people, they would hire some gardeners so that they can come and clean up their places just before it starts to rain. So my father, when he will be working in the rich neighborhoods, he will be getting that information so that he can find out who will be traveling for a vacation and which house will not be having anyone looking after it. He would take that information and he would pass it on to the criminal organization. And in that organization, my brother, I swear to you that there were even some police officers that were working with that type of a mafia thing. My father ended up working for this other man. So this man, he had his own mortuary. Back in those days, I can say that maybe there was only one company that used to have these mortuaries, even though I do not want to mention the name of that company. But people in our country, they know that, like, in the 90s, there was almost like one company that did the funerals in our country. There was this other man that my father was now working for, but this man, he was a hardened criminal. This man, what he used to do is that he would steal some cattle in the villages. And the way that they used to do it, because they didn't want the police to track them, I swear to you, my brother, that people were eating some meat that were being taken out of the mortuary, because straight from the village, then the car would go to the mortuary. That man had a small mortuary. Some of the slaughtered cattle would be stored into the fridge of that mortuary. My father, when he started working for that man, we saw that my father was now a changed man. He was kind of like cruel. Then my father's boss asked my father if my mother wanted to work as well in the mortuary, and my mother agreed. Up until my mother passed away, you know that she could not even sleep if she didn't take a medication. I don't know what type of medication that my mom was working, but each and every night when she would return back from work, my mom could not sleep because of the things that she would have seen in the mortuary. She was always on medication. My mom, she passed away when I was only 22 years old. Then our father was the one who was left, and he was taking care of us. Whenever he would go out for his hustles, he would tell us that we had to take care of ourselves just in case if he was going to die or if he was not going to return. It didn't matter if our father would go out in the afternoon. He would say that, my children, now that I am going to work, even if he was going to cut grass, he would always say that, just in case if I do not return, just know that I love you. All the things that I do, it is because I want to give you a better life, a life that I never had. And if it happens that I do not come back, I want you to take care of yourselves. We didn't know that at that time my father, when he would have gone out, what they would do is that they would go at this other area. It is called Mbudzi. That is where most of the people that live in Harare are buried after they have died. So they would go there during the afternoon. My father and some of the men, they would pretend as if they will be selling silly stuff. Like in our country we have these frozen juices that is called freeze it. So they would go around the cemetery selling those frozen juices to the people that will be burying their loved ones. All that they will be checking is if those people will be burying their loved one with an expensive casket. It was during those times when that coffin that is called a casket was introduced into the market, and it was very expensive. So my father and some of the men that he was working with, they were working as spies. And if it happens that they would have spied that at such and such a grave there is a person who has been buried whilst he was lying inside a casket, late at night they would come and they would dig up that person. I only got to find out about this when my father wanted me to be part of that organization, but I was still very nervous at that time. Even though I was all matured, this happened when I was 26 years old. One night, my father, he woke me up and he said that I was very lazy. With the way that I was lazy, how was I going to take care of my wife if I was ever going to get married? My father woke me up and we then went out of the house. There was a car that was waiting for us. We got into that pickup truck. Then that pickup truck got onto the road until we had arrived at the cemetery. When we arrived there, that was when I saw that already there were some men that were digging up their own grave in which they had spied and seen that there was a very expensive casket. My father said that I should not lazy around because there was a grave that was waiting for us and we had to dig it up before everyone could start walking. So my father and this other man, it was the three of us, we started digging and digging. In our country, back in those days, they used to dig really deep. We dug and we dug, my brother, until we heard this other thudding sound. That was when my father looked at that other man and he said that finally we have arrived at the prize. My father then told me that I had to get out of the grave. Mind you, my brother, when we were doing this, we were only using those helmets that they use in the mines. So when I got out of that grave, my father then said, you have to switch off that light that is on your helmet, otherwise people are going to see you. So I had to switch it off and it was really dark and I was scared. Then my father and that man, they started removing that coffin and they told me that I had to give them a rope. I gave them a rope and they tied that rope around that expensive coffin. Then they got out of the grave and we started pulling that coffin out of that grave. After we had done pulling it out of the grave, my father, he opened it up and there was a woman that was lying dead in there. Such disrespect. My father and that man, what they did is that they pushed that coffin just by the edge of that grave. Then they said that they were going to lift up that deceased woman and throw her back into her grave. I was really scared, and they said that if I was too scared, I had to look to the side, otherwise, the spirit of the deceased was going to follow me. All of these things, when they were doing it, they were just laughing. My brother, it was like very scary when I had a third and I knew that my father and his friend, they had successfully thrown the body of that deceased woman back into her grave. Then we started filling up the grave again. And that truck, after we were done, it came and we loaded that coffin. From there on, we returned back to that workshop where they were making the coffins and we offloaded it. My father was given money and they shared the money amongst themselves. And when I saw that this is what my father was doing, I then ran away. First of all, when I ran away, I went to Mozambique. But when I went to Mozambique, I saw that the money that was being used there, it was not valuable at that time. So I came back home, but I didn't stay for a very long time in my country. Then I traveled out of Zim and I came to the place where I am currently staying, and it was like the devil was following me. You know what happened, my brother? When I came to the country where I am currently staying, one day when I was just sitting by the side of the road, it was sunset. There was this other man who was driving a black Range Rover. He stopped his car and he asked me why I was just sitting by the side of the road. And I was honest enough with him, and he saw that I was from Zim. He asked me if I had any papers, and I said, no, I don't have any papers. I was scared because I thought that maybe he was an official who wanted to detain me. He said, that is good, that is really good, get into the car. So I got into the car feeling really scared. Along the way, that was when he said that he has his funeral home and he was in need of my services. This country in which I am right now, my brother, if you say too much in this field that I am working, it is quite dangerous. But the same job that my father used to do, it was like destiny was waiting for me in this country where I am currently staying. I am being used left, right, and center to do the same things that my father used to do back home in Zim. Dear listeners, right there was a message that we received from one of our listeners, and we had to give you this translation. Strange things do happen in this world.